CTV family. Catch us live on your TV screens.
And we are back, and of course, this is the awesome queer episode where everybody's going to learn a little bit of something. Now, Awonke was so desperate to just come and join the panel. You could see him excited on the sidelines, so we chased Bonga off.
Definitely,
and
yeah,
Awonke's
because
here
I
joined us.
had a lot of questions. I'm listening and I'm absorbing and I'm learning, and also joined by a new member on the panel. Welcome. Please tell the viewers who you are and what it is that you do.
All right, so my name is Yana, also called by Lemonade Panda. I'm a candidate Anthony. I'm also an artist and a legal intern in a radio local station.
So I want to note the two queens, the two legal queens, one in bright blue and one in bright yellow.
Yes.
Nah, that's amazing. So when I below Yako, how does it then help you navigate maybe this community that not everybody is well educated on or is very accepting of?
Yeah, I think, challenges are there. And South Africa having a democratic system that is so new, I mean, we're still learning. And our rights have just been given to us. Same-sex marriages were only legalized in 2006. So it does continue to be a journey where we all learn from each other. But I think from the grounds, there's just so much gap between the Constitution itself and the Section 9 that my colleague here was speaking about earlier, and the implementation of these rights, the safety of a community member of LGBTI walking around the streets. So there's still that gap that we continuously seek to fill, and that can only be done through education, through arts, as Sia here said earlier on. So we need to use platforms. I mean, the education system, the curriculum, the life orientation, the language itself, the pocket queerpedia really needs to be in schools, So these are the things that we need to implement to make sure that change is practical in our society.
I'm listening to everything that you're saying, Lemonade, and I'm just thinking about an article that I read quite a few years back, where supposedly, according to the law, South Africa is one of the safest places for the LGBT community. Now, I don't know how true that is.
I disagree.
So let's get into that a bit.
Yeah, there's just so much hate crimes, in South Africa. And I mean, you look at the democracy and you look at the constitution that says you are safe, but you go to the streets and you experience something totally different.
So on paper versus reality.
And for me, a feminine lesbian woman who walks around the streets, I may be safe because I am not so obvious that this person is actually a homosexual. But for somebody else whose expression is totally different from mine, then they tell a different total story. I mean, there's been, cases.
2 months ago. A month ago, a lesbian couple dragged out of their house. One was killed, and that's just the normality of it. That's South Africa.
Down my
on
spine.
Facebook, it's like a crime stop unit. You go to your Facebook wall, and there's all these reports of homosexual beatings, of some homosexual, hate crimes. So it tells you that we're not there yet. And the people can go and press charges for harassment. They still need to push it further to make sure that those cases. So we also have to bring it upon ourselves as well as homosexuals to make sure that we protect our community and that we actually do fight for these rights. So it's something else to say you've been given a right to vote, but you actually have to go to a voting booth and put an X. So even to us homosexuals, we also have to go out there and make sure that we follow up on these cases. We need to make sure that the activism that we spoke about earlier on, that the society of LGBTI, that forums are created in communities so people who belong in this community actually be more safe.
I think it blows my mind, because you were talking about hate crimes. It's so bizarre to me how people, because they're maybe, maybe they aren't used to somebody being queer or gay, and suddenly they're uncomfortable, and that uncomfort turns into hate, and that ignorance turns into hate, and it's so bizarre. I mean, people just existing and living their best lives. It's how does that affect anybody else? It doesn't. So it really, it's so.
It's learned behavior. I mean, like if you look at it, it's just like. I grew up in an African family. I was lucky enough that it wasn't overtly, transphobic or homophobic, but the jokes were there. The shame was there. I felt shameful for years after leaving home. I knew I needed to leave our small town because I was like, I'm not going to survive here. And it's some people don't have that luxury to say, I'm going to pack up and I can get the resources to move and go somewhere else and just be myself. So it's true. It's like on paper, we have one of the best constitutions that's in the world. But when it comes practically, because the people that enforce the same the same constitution don't really, they don't have the...
Yeah.
Yeah, and the conversations really need to start from top down, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, you hear a president's speech and only a paragraph of it addresses the community of the LGBTI. The rest of the 20 pages speak about everything else that is still important in the country, but we need community leaders to actually come to the forefront, because these are the examples, these are the people that set examples for these youngsters out there. We need church leaders to stand in the pulpit and advocate for these rights. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, there's just so much contradiction, because even on the Civil Unions Act, there's a clause there that actually says that a civil servant has got a right to refuse to marry a gay couple.
They removed that, I think, last year.
Okay,
You know,
okay, so it's removed.
So
That's
there's things like that that continuously have to be corrected, you know.
And looking out for as
and
well.
looking
Yeah.
out for as well, because the devil lies on the tiny detail.
Yeah.
I think also, if we're honest, so like, I want to just touch back to
Sure.
heteronormative and that term, right?
Yeah.
So it is about the idea that this is common and normal and stuff. Which again, I mean, I always want to sneak in that question. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Have you actually
Yeah.
asked yourself in
Yeah.
detail? Did you have the terminology? But
Yeah.
another thing is we need to be a bit honest, I think, about patriarchy
Yeah.
and the fact that
Yeah.
patriarchy relies on value systems and power relations
Yeah.
that are very entrenched. And the problem, I think, with that discomfort that you talk about is a lot of queer relationships and identities. They start questioning that binary and they start questioning that power relationship.
Yeah.
Because if, for example, gay lovers can exist, or if a trans person can exist, if someone can be non-binary and not identify exclusively as a man or woman, then how entrenched, how normal, how real is the relationship of that sort of a man as superior and
Yeah.
a woman as inferior?
This is such
Like
a
it becomes a threat to
so
that,
much
and
to
people,
flesh out.
people
Yeah.
don't want to give that up.
Yeah.
I mean, in some ways, you can sort of not blame them, except we can, because of the results. But people don't want to give those power relations up.
I'm
And I
so
think
glad
it's
you-
Then when
important.
we spoke about educating people and then the workshops and etc.
Yeah.
While we're still here in Ekse, maybe there's another platform that we can educate. Can we please then break down the letters? Because I understand every other year there's another letter
Okay.
that's added. Can we break down and explain what it is for the people that generally don't know?
So at the moment, is it LGBTQIA+?
Yeah.
Is there any extra letter added at the moment that everybody knows about?
There's the plus for those extra
Yeah.
letters, because we wouldn't want to zip up the bucket and say this
Yeah,
the
yeah.
list
Yeah.
is now, you know.
Yeah.
And there's also queer allies as well, which are incorporated. And I think as well on those letters, and I think what is important with the work that they are doing is actually bringing language back to us, because remember, South Africa is in Africa. So I think also we cannot run away from how Africanism is separated from the community of LGBTI, because there's always that distance to say this is so westernized, this is
Yeah.
so foreign to us, this is not ours. And
Yeah.
therefore, it goes back to our language as well, because remember, our being also comes with a language. So if
Yeah.
we have got pocket diaries of our kids who grow up learning these terms in their mother tongue, then there's acceptance,
it's-
then there is bringing it
So
back,
needed.
you know?
Can we break down each letter? We can go through the row.
Yeah, sure. L, lesbian.
So that's where we start.
I think, yeah, I'll need to start from the left.
Sure, yeah. L stands for a
Yeah.
lesbian, a woman who is also interested in other women sexually, romantically, yeah.
And then there's gay, obviously. I don't know why I say obviously, but that's like what most people know.
Yeah.
It's gay, it's a man, identify as a man, and I'm in love with another man.
So
Or
we've
I'm
got the
attracted to
L
another man.
and we've got the B. No, we've
And
got
the
the L and the
LG, yeah.
LG. So next is B.
Sure, I can do the B and the T and then.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, okay, so bisexual, and I'm gonna sort of put in next to it pansexual, but basically because while they're not the same, there's a lot of overlap, and it's the idea that you can be attracted to a man and a woman, but also it's more about the idea that you're attracted, and a non-binary person, so it's about the idea that you're attracted to people regardless of, or more
So more
than one
emotions and
gender. Yeah, so
personality,
I think
gender
people
side.
get stuck on that by like the idea of two, when
Okay,
it's
okay.
more like me and not like me. That's more of the
That's actually a good way of putting it, like
Yeah.
me and not
Yes,
like me.
yeah.
So we've got like very, very, very little time left. So like, we've got the L, G, B, we've got T, QIA plus. So let's get through the rest of it for the next 60 seconds.
Okay. Do you want to take it?
T is for transgender. On that one, you're actually allowed to go and apply for the change of your gender. You don't need to actually do the whole body transformation thing. You can just choose to say, at this particular point, I just want to be identified to be falling under this gender.
We've got very, very little time left, so I want to jump. We've got T, so Q is queer, right? And I feel like I'm playing a guessing game. I, intersex, A, asexual, and plus is for the allies. So with that, I hope everybody has learned so much at home. Again, don't go anywhere, and thank you so much to our awesome guests. Bye!
CTV family, catch us live on your TV screens.